look to counter-attack. This time, the left boot of Johnny Wilkinson once again putting the pressure on. It's been a tournament that's seen some desperately poor kicking between sides, and no better exponent of that than Mike Catt in the game against South Africa. And Gomersall picks out touch, just the sensible thing to do there, because the kicking game was going nowhere between either side.
Well, it is, and it's interesting. I thought Samoa might want to look to counter a lot more, particularly on loose kicks where there's no pressure, and we've seen a couple of those already from England. But seemed quite content to play the kicking, the aerial ping-pong games.
How do you see the line-out going? Do you see Samoans being able to live with England in that department? Or it's a break here from Henry Tuilangi. And all of a sudden, those 3 points that Loki Crichton has managed to put on the board seem to have given the Samoans back that confident edge that they would have started the game with. It's the other Tuilangi this time, Alisana, who bursts through and Polly recycles. He's being held back there. The referee waves advantage. Some slingshot passing for the South Sea Islands, exactly what we expect. And it's another penalty, and this should be a simple opportunity for Crichton to reduce the deficit to 4. And, well, just as we were saying, a really positive start from England. Back come the Samoans.
Well, I think you would, if you're in the Samoan camp, you'd want to get the Tuilangi brothers into the game, running at the English as early as possible. They've got thighs like tree trunks, and they're very, low centre of gravity. And look at them, I mean, they're hugely powerful men. So I think they'll want to get these guys with the ball in the hands as often as possible. And well, it's maybe not as one-sided as we thought it might be after the early English exchanges, but.
Well, definitely one of the interesting things that's come from that passage of play is that England have had 2 good opportunities. They were on the 6th phase when Johnny Wilkinson kicked that drop goal, and they had no one who looked as though he was going to break the line. The Samoans, the 2 big Tuilangi brothers, absolute powerhouses with getting the ball at pace. Now, once again, something that you do not see, in my view, the English backline or the English forwards doing frequently enough. And in fact, it's been a fault of all Northern Hemisphere sides in the last few years. Just too many flat balls going out of the backs and expecting backs to go from a standing start. And we see the difference there. Loki Crichton, right in his game with the kicking. You wouldn't expect him to have missed that second one, but he slotted it between the posts, and a really excellent comeback from the Samoans. And England know they're in a game now. Wilkinson with the restart, taken in well, and once again the Samoans will be given an opportunity here, perhaps to counter from deep. Instead they go for the kicking option though. It's a well-placed kick, and quickly taken inside to Lucy. Well, this is being one of the most disappointing aspects as well of the English game at this Rugby World Cup. Crichton misses touch again though, and they could be, well, I say they could be punished, but they're only going to be punished if it comes back with interest. Gomersall thought about the kick, instead went back to his forwards, and that was a sensible option. Bit of space out wide here for England. Cueto driven forward. Good support play from Joe Worsley out wide there. And Gomersall comes back inside. Cueto. Support there again comes from Sheridan, but it's just slowing down. But illegally slowed down, and this is something the Samoans will have to be very wary of. When Johnny Wilkinson's on the pitch, as we saw throughout the whole of the last World Cup, whenever England needed to turn to a plan B, because to be honest they didn't have the most incredible plan A out in Australia, but when they needed a plan B they just turned to getting into the positions to win the penalties, and they ground the opposition down. And when you have his kicking ability, it's 3 points every time.
But I mean, you made the point there, it was slow ball, and that has been an endemic problem for England in both matches that they've played. Even against the USA, who you would have thought England could really outmuscle at the contact areas. The USA were able to slow things down, and it just allowed their defences to reorganise themselves, and made it very, very difficult for England to put any sort of dynamic thrusting play together.
Wilkinson then striking the familiar pre-kick pose.
I don't think England will worry. If they come away with a win, that's their primary objective. If it's, you know, 8 penalties from Johnny Wilkinson and 1 try, but they win, I don't think they'll worry.
Oh no, I think you're absolutely right. The only thing that they will worry about is the fact that if the clamps are put on them ticking the scoreboard over and the Samoans suddenly score a try, for instance, if the Samoans were to get a try now, suddenly puts the pressure right back on. Just remains to be seen whether they can hold the discipline together. The kicking game has been woefully employed by England once again, and it's easy possession taken by the Samoans, and they get to fling it out wide through the backs for one of the first times, rather than using the Tuilangis on the crash ball. English defence up quickly, managing to get involved there, and a turnover from Nick Easter. Gomersall. Wilkinson, can he employ a more sensible touch to the corner? Well, the answer is in fact no.
Well, he'll have to scrum back if it hit the corner flag, I think.
No, he was going for too much perfection on that occasion. But Johnny Wilkinson, I mean, is not the player. Well, first of all, I don't think he is the player he was 4 years ago. He just hasn't had enough big game experience. But second of all, he's not the player that you'd expect to be missing that sort of kick. He may as well bring it back. There's no difference really between putting one of those kicks 10 yards. Well, okay, there is a difference, but there's no real difference between putting it 1 yard out or 10 yards out. It's just kicking for position, and England putting the pressure on the Samoans.
Absolutely, and I think that's what they've got to do, and that's what Wilkinson usually is a pass master at. He just drills it into the corner and plays for position, and you're gonna, if you have that for a sustained period of time, it's kind of like you're stuck in the mud. You just can't get away from it. The pressure becomes relentless, and inevitably you concede penalties, and that's where Wilkinson converts them. But
free kick taken quickly by Polo. He glides through the England line at will, but fails to get the pass away to David Lemmy.
Well, poor tackling by England. I mean, they missed a couple of tackles on the Tuilagi brothers earlier on, but Junior Polo doesn't have anything like put in the first-time tackles.
Well, the familiar chant of LA Bleu rings out around the stadium here. Now, Tolson, you're down on the sidelines. How's the atmosphere whipping up, and are the majority of French people within the ground possibly supporting Samoa?
Well, Jonathan, during the national anthems, you would have sworn of the 38,500 or so people here that 38,000 were Englishmen. But all of a sudden, things have changed during the course of the match. Fair enough, the Samoan anthem, there are a lot of neutrals here, so there wasn't as much noise as during the English anthem, but yes, there is a lot of French people here who are supporting the Samoan team. They want to see a Samoan victory. But I can tell you one thing on the weather. Earlier in the day, it was around 25 or so degrees, and the wind is coming in from directly behind as the viewers are looking at those pictures. And I'm a little bit concerned about the rain because I'm sitting here with no raincoat and umbrella.
Well, we feel very sorry for you, Tolson.
Yeah, that's global warming in action. Bad luck, Tolson.
But you probably feel that if the rain did come down, it's going to suit England slightly more than it will the Samoans, because their game can revert to Wilkinson just kicking for position, which it looks as though it's probably based on already. But in these opening exchanges, I mean, we're approaching the quarter of the way through this game, and after the way England started, do you think they'll be disappointed by how the game's progressed? The fact they haven't really imposed that forward authority that they looked as though they were going to have.
Yeah, I think they would have wanted to have had a little bit more territorial advantage, and they'd want to have had more opportunity to really assert themselves up front. But it's a pretty even battle at the moment. There's no quarter being asked for or given in this one.
It's a long clearance kick going into touch from Tate. But just England at the moment just seem to be, well, they're lacking spark in every single department, but they don't have the self-belief. And you do feel the other side of things, that if the Samoans can stay within a reasonable striking margin in this game, that English self-belief and just panic can set in towards the end, because they have to win this game. It's so much has been invested upon it.
Yeah, I think both sides really needing to boost their confidence to let them move on.
It's a good steal in the line-out from the English. Can they do anything in the backs here? Tate gets a chance to run for one of the first times in this World Cup. Gomersall goes blind. Good hands out wide to Joe Worsley. Good momentum kept going here by the English back row forwards. Wilkinson flung out wide again, but just too slow in midfield, and they've gone back about 10 yards there, and it's been illegally stolen. And it's Joe Corey who gives away the penalty, and well, Joe Corey and Kane Thompson both being spoken to there by Alan Lewis, and it's a poor position for the Samoans to be giving away possession, especially really there when they'd already snuffed out the English threat of attack.
Well, they had, but for once England actually were able to recycle ball quickly. They got quick ball, and Gomersall switched it away, and then Wilkinson put a deep pass and he found a forward, and that's when all the momentum was lost. And actually the tackle was made about 10 yards behind where the ball was recycled from. And, that's been England's problem right the way through this World Cup. They need to get their strike runners into space. If that ball had gone to Matthew Tate, you'd have expected him to put a lot more pace onto it.
But it's something that has been spoken about a lot in the British media, and also the Southern Hemisphere media have been picking it out. Just the fact that England seem to have become obsessed with this, using the forwards in the line, and it's all very well when you have someone like Victor Matfield, who not only is very adept with the ball in his hands, but he's also reasonably quick. You've got John Schmidt, probably I'd say the quickest hooker around at the moment. The South Africans have it, the New Zealanders have it, the Australians have it. They all have forwards who have pace, whereas these lumbering old men that many of them are in the England side, it's pointless giving them the ball out wide. Still, no mistake. As I said, we'll keep you posted if Johnny Wilkinson misses one. He didn't. It's back out to the 10-point lead, but it's an intriguing encounter at this stage, but England will feel that they've got their noses ahead. They just need some form of running rugby that's going to give the crowd something to really support them for, because at the moment the English crowd, they're going to be happy with a win, but there's so much that win's most important, but then it's going to be the way it's achieved. And Brian Ashton said that he wants them to play a different type of rugby. Well, we haven't really seen that in evidence yet.
But that was more like it by Gomersall. A cracking kick there, and Samoa right back and under pressure, having to play rugby from 30 yards from their own try line now.
Once again, good pressure put on the Samoan line out by England. It does look as though that's going to be a particular facet of the game, which the screw will be turned on, and it's something they've targeted. Still, tidy ball. Even in the game between Tonga and South Africa earlier today, JP Peterson and Brian Habana, when he came on, both of them constantly looking for the ball. They want to have a run at the opposition. Paul Saki, who sort of made a name for himself for doing that in the Premiership, just not really ever pushed that up to test level. And another player here who the same was said about was Joe Worsley coming into this tie. Well, can he stand up on the big occasion and be a man to be counted? Well, on initial showing, he's having a tidy enough game. It just looks to lack the pace that's needed. Wilkinson with the up and under to put the pressure on Loki Crichton. Just a bit too long, that kick. Taken quickly by Crichton. And the Samoans look to attack from deep. Need support here. And it wasn't there. And holding on, well, they are just going to hemorrhage points if they give away penalties in these positions.
Well, Bernard Lapasse and Bill Beaumont discussing the niceties of the Ruck and Maul. You can see Samoa going over the top, but Semo Satiti obviously not happy with that decision. And I think when you look at the penalty count, it would be very much in favour of England. Samoa haven't had many penalties going their way.
They haven't had many penalties going their way, but at the same time, they haven't had, I'll be interested to see, but I don't think they've had that much possession. They had a small segment between sort of 6 and 10 minutes, but the rest of it, albeit fairly painful to watch, English possession, they have actually had the ball. Almost an identical kick, this one for Wilkinson. And we're just informed there that it's 62-38 possession-wise in England's favour.